Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story about an employee who stole inventory from a warehouse and was fired in the end. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. And our first story. Break company policy? No problem. First, this is about my brother-in-law from a few years ago. He had recently just gotten a job as store manager for a big chain tire place. They decided to give him a store that was actually in a good location, but was doing terrible in sales, and was about an hour away from where he and my sister lived. He didn't care. He was just happy to be given the chance to be a store manager. Now, my brother-in-law is essentially David Puddy from Seinfeld. He will never bullcrap a customer and never sell them something they don't need. It's actually part of his tire store's mission. They prefer return customers over lying and effing people over. But one huge thing is you can't use the shop for personal jobs. Now, you can bring in your friends or family member's car and get them a big discount during work hours, like it's enough that you would be stupid to ignore it. Well, my brother-in-law is all about following the rules, making his store turn around from unprofitable to shining example, so he explains this to all of his new subordinates. All of them are agreeing and have no problems with this, so things are going okay at the store. But he notices that his inventory's off a little bit. An oil filter here, an air filter there, nothing huge, but still, stuff that's easy to track, so it shouldn't be missing. One day, after starting the long trip home, he realizes he forgot something, so he heads back. He gets to the shop, the lights are on in the car bays. He sees one of his employees, we'll call him Juan, with a car on a lift doing work on it. This is well outside of work hours, so he says, "What the F is going on?" Juan freaks out, claims it was an emergency. My brother-in-law is moderately forgiving, but remembering all of the small missing inventory, he thinks something's up. So he lets Juan keep his job, but says, "Don't F up again." Now, my brother-in-law could have fired him then and there, but he really had no proof that this was more than a one-time occurrence, and he wanted to get Juan blacklisted. Because lying to him is one thing, stealing really pisses him off. So for about a month, things are fine. Then parts start going missing again. He ended up just hiding out for about an hour, far enough from the shop that his car couldn't be seen, waited, then went back to the shop to catch Juan working on cars. Apparently, the reason the shop was doing bad was because Juan was underselling the shop and then pocketing the money. So my brother-in-law fired him. Then and there. What made it better was Juan had a green card, meaning he had to be employed to stay in the country. My brother-in-law, also an immigrant I might add, made the appropriate call and had Juan deported. Last I heard, Juan got arrested trying to sneak back into the USA. Shop eventually was doing well financially. And our second story. Tell paramedics to wait for the next elevator? I don't think so. This happened years ago when I worked in a major city as a paramedic. There were numerous hotels that were converted into a cross between Section 8, welfare housing, and homeless shelters. These places were like magnets for medical issues because the people there did not take care of themselves and used the ambulances and emergency rooms like doctors. We get a call there, potential heart attack, and get our escort, staff from the shelter, always came with us to show us where the room was and assist us. As we approach the elevators, there are two on the floor and open, so I say, "Hold the elevator." In one, someone looked at us and shrugged. In the other, the guy stuck his head out and said, "Take the next one, I'm in a hurry." Okay, no problem. I pull out my key ring, check the fire access key type, and insert the key. It brings all the elevators to the ground floor. PD has now joined us, and Mr. "I'm in a hurry" is looking like, WTF just happened? My partner yells, "Everyone out, you can use the stairs." Mr. in a hurry says he ain't getting out, so PD says, "Are you deaf or stupid? Get out." So he finally exits and says, "What do I do now?" My partner says, "The stairs work, you're in a hurry." We get in the elevator, and our escort says, "That was the most awesome thing I have seen here." We held the elevators for 20 minutes and left with our patient. Mr. in a hurry was waiting for us, and the escort told him if he says one word, he'd be thrown out. Quick explanation of how the fire key works. You insert the key and turn it to emergency service. You then take the key out. All the elevators return to the ground floor, You take your elevator and insert the key in that keyhole and can make the elevator an express elevator, and it will stay on whatever floor you're on. When you're done, turn it back to regular service in the elevator and then back at the main fire service one. The main fire service one is only on the ground floor. And our last story. Accuse me of stealing? You will lose everything. This happened way back in the dark ages. 1986. I was 21 at the time and working for a gas station that was associated with a certain grocery store chain in Washington state. It was owned by a company not affiliated with said chain, but had locations at nearly every one. As this was long before the days of debit cards, this was a cash-only gas station. We didn't even take credit cards. Customers would pull up, pump their gas, and then come to my window to pay. We also sold cigarettes. No drinks, no snacks. Customers couldn't even get into my booth. I'd been working there about a year when the company announced it was closing the location. My manager and I were offered positions at another location upstate, and we both accepted. We moved our respective families and started our new jobs as new hires. Ugh. This station was incredibly busy. We did more business in 8 hours than my old location would do in a week. This location had a different setup. Here you would pull into the station from a single entrance, pump your gas, then drive forward to a single exit where the Pay Here booth was located. There were always 2 cashiers on duty. Each cashier had a cash drawer. One thing I should note, there were also no computers. So closing the drawer down between shifts was time-consuming and tedious. We had to manually count the cigarettes remaining and count the cash drawers. We would fill out an end-of-shift report listing the starting balances and the ending balances. We also had to list the gallons sold from each pump. At the end of the shift, the total of gallons sold and the total cigarettes sold should equal the cash balance. It's important to note here that not once in the year I'd worked for the previous location had I been off by more than 10 cents. The following morning, after my first shift, I was informed by the manager that I was short $50. Impossible, I said. I balanced out yesterday. He said that I must have stolen that money after I'd completed the paperwork. I just looked at him and said, no, I didn't. He gave me a verbal warning and said if it happened again, I would be fired and the stolen money would be deducted from my paycheck this week. In the 5 days that followed, I realized quickly the manager was up to something. My old manager, who was just another worker now, was also accused of stealing, as was one of the other new employees. I can't vouch for the other employee, but I'm pretty sure she did nothing wrong. The employees that had been there a while were never accused of anything. I did some checking and found out this manager was relatively new, had only been there about 6 months, and the other cashiers had been here before him. Only new cashiers were being accused of stealing, and that location had been having stealing problems for about 6 months, and their turnover was high with the new employees. I came to work at 6 a.m. on a Monday only to be told I was being fired for cause. The manager accused me of taking $500 out of my drawer the previous Friday. He said he only discovered it this morning, even though he had worked Saturday and Sunday. I said okay and left. I was pretty angry, and instead of going home, I parked in the grocery store parking lot and proceeded to settle in to watch the gas station. I knew that at 9 a.m. sharp, he would take the cash in the safe and make the weekend deposit. At 9 a.m., he left the gas station and headed to the bank. But instead of walking into the bank, he walked into the casino next door. It's not really a casino like we think of today, but more of a betting parlor for the races. It did have slot machines, but no card tables. I think, well, this is interesting. He comes out of the casino at exactly 10 a.m., walks next door to the bank, does his business, then heads back to the gas station. I head home with a plan. Every morning, I follow him from the gas station to the casino. I take a picture of him leaving and one of him arriving at the bank and walking into the casino. I take pictures of him coming out and then heading to the bank. I do this for 5 days straight. He even went on Saturday. On day 3, my old manager was fired for stealing $150. I get the film developed, no digital camera in the dark ages, note the times and dates on the back of each one, then I call the main office of the gas company. It's after 5, but I'm hoping someone is there, and there is. I speak to a woman and explain my situation, and she says she knows exactly who I should speak to and transfers me. By some grace of God, she's transferred me to none other than the president/CEO of the company. I tell him my story and tell him I did not steal from his company and could prove who actually did. He took down my information and said he would be in touch. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, right. The next morning, I went to the station to perform my usual observation of the manager. At 9 a.m., he leaves for the bank. At 10 a.m., he comes out. At that moment, two stern-looking gentlemen approach him. One pulls out his wallet and shows him something. The other one is talking. The manager goes pale and takes a step back. Next thing I know, he's being escorted to a car I hadn't noticed, and they drive off. I lose them at a traffic signal, so I head back to the station. They all show back up about 5 minutes later, and a few minutes after that, a police cruiser pulls in. The officer talks to the stern gentleman and proceeds to place the manager in handcuffs. The other man says nothing but is glaring daggers at the manager. The president called me that afternoon and informed me that the manager had been arrested for embezzlement. Turns out that in 6 months, he'd managed to steal about $5,000. He would take the store cash to the casino and gamble with it. If he won, he'd make the normal bank deposit. If he lost, he would make the deposit and note in his records that we had been short the previous day. The CEO had already been focusing on that location because of the stealing and high turnover rate, but my information helped them figure out exactly what had been going on. I was thanked and sent a substantial check as a reward. My old manager was offered the manager's job, and I was offered my old job back. I declined as I'd already found another job that I liked more and paid better. The gambling manager was sentenced to 1 year in jail and ordered to attend counseling for his gambling addiction. His wife divorced him and took their 3 children to California. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.